For the longest time, all roads pointed towards Blackbeard versus Luffy being the final and most decisive battle of One Piece. Depending on who you talk to, how this battle is going to come together in the end will vary, but all the same, there was almost a unanimous agreement that when it's all said and done, Blackbeard would be the last obstacle on Luffy's path to becoming king of the pirates. I do believe that latter statement to still hold up, ultimately speaking. However, due to recent manga events, I gotta say, I am no longer under the impression that Blackbeard won't come face to face with our favorite goofy rubber man until they both reach the last island, because Luffy and Blackbeard are currently on two separate distinct paths that are due to collide in the imminent future. And by imminent future, I'm talking like next arc. Just let me explain. Take a second to remember the current trajectory of these two characters. Just 2 years after making an enormous splash in the Paramount War, Luffy and Teach respectively have gone on to make groundbreaking strides in their own right. Slowly but surely, over time, both of these guys have made themselves household names, figures of notoriety whose names everybody knows, to the point where now they stand atop of the New World as Emperors of the Sea. The most interesting part about Blackbeard and Luffy is, despite how similar their rises to glory appear, they have only actually crossed paths with each other twice within the actual story, and where these meetings take place is by no means an accident. Their first encounter takes place on Jaya, in Mocktown. Here, it is immediately established upon this meeting that, though contrasting in nature they may be, Luffy and Teach are two sides of the same coin. They are ordinary men driven to pursue their dreams no matter what. They don't care who laughs, they don't care who thinks their aspirations for the impossible to be ridiculous, because a man's dream will never die. This is critical not only to the overarching narrative of One Piece, but to the connection shared between Luffy and Blackbeard. This shows that regardless of how opposing one's actions might be from one another's, at the core, seeing their dreams through is what drives these two down the roads they have taken. Their second and most recent meeting was in Impel Down, as Luffy stood before the very man who encouraged his reaching the Sky Island, the same man who encouraged his impossible dream, and the same man who he had a measly argument with over pie in Mocktown. He realized that same man is Blackbeard. Blackbeard is the reason Luffy is in this hell trying to rescue his brother to begin with, and through a twisted turn of fate, it is in the Marineford War where both characters experience a metamorphosis which would change their fates forever. Blackbeard gained power like no other, getting his hands on perhaps the greatest paramecia fruit in the series and becoming one of the strongest pirates in the world overnight. And Luffy lost his brother. Blackbeard ascended to new highs while Luffy sank to his lowest lows. What I want to identify here is how each time Luffy and Blackbeard have encountered each other, it is followed up by events of epic proportion orchestrated or heavily influenced by these two. So when is the next logical confrontation? Initially, I believed that it would not happen until Laugh Tale. Recent events within the story have led to me believing that this fated rendezvous will still happen at Laugh Tale, but Luffy and Blackbeard are due to butt heads before then, and allow me to further explain. To put it bluntly, Teach has been making moves. Big moves. Money moves, and this is par for the course with his character. In the shadows of our protagonist's struggles to be king, there is an opportunistic, overweight black man also climbing the same rungs to the top of that ladder. Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates have their hands on 3 of the royal poneglyphs needed in order to find the final island. In the cover story of One Piece chapter 1063, Whole Cake Island is completely frozen over. Now there's only one man we know with that level of efficiency with ice, and he is currently affiliated with the Blackbeard Pirates. Let's assume he snagged the poneglyph printing while on Whole Cake. That's one for Teach that we know of. And if the scuffle with Law ends with how I think it does, that will be 2 for Blackbeard. From a strictly progression standpoint, Teach is said to be on Luffy's heels much sooner rather than later. But, in my expert opinion, the biggest reason why I say this battle is on the horizon is for the simple fact that now there are personal stakes involved. Why do you think it is Oda has specifically highlighted Blackbeard's activity now? Sure, you can say it's because it's the final saga. He is expected to be on the move more, and that is technically true. What stands out to me is how two people particularly close to Luffy in Kobe and Boa Hancock have been on the receiving end of Blackbeard's antics lately. And why is it do you think Luffy turned down hearing about the other events going on in the world? First time I read that, I remember thinking that it was rather blatant. Luffy isn't the type to really care for news, so it is in line with this goofball, of course, to brush off more info, but in hindsight, this is why Oda had Luffy decline any more information in chapter 1060. If Luffy would have learned what happened, he would have made haste for Blackbeard with no hesitation. Countless times before in this story, we have seen Luffy's foolhardy approach when it comes to those he cares about. This guy would throw caution into the wind and burn down the entire world if it means keeping his friends safe and sound. I am personally inclined to believe that following the Egghead Island arc, or perhaps even during it, Luffy and the crew will learn of Law's fate. This gives reason to go after the Blackbeard pirates now, on top of finding out what happened prior with Kobe and Boa Hancock. The truth of the matter is, Luffy's and Blackbeard's next meeting can't wait. The story is seemingly pushing these two towards the other, like your typical tsundere yandere couple. When they meet next, it is going to shake the seas and upset the very balance of the world itself. And to address why I think a separate clash at Laughter will happen as well, it goes back to my saying earlier on that every meeting between Luffy and Blackbeard is followed up with huge occurrences within the narrative. The biggest single event in the history of not just this series, but manga as a whole, is the finding of the One Piece. Nothing will ever be able to top this. When you look at how Luffy and Blackbeard's encounters have been sprinkled throughout the last 25 years, to me it just makes too much sense for the two of them to meet as Emperors of the Sea first before their final showdown at Laugh Tale. I also find this route to be more interesting. Blackbeard proving himself to be just one step ahead of Luffy at this juncture adds an entirely new layer of story to be told here. Marshall D. Teach is a character who has been slithering in the darkness for the better part of 2 decades. More than Doflamingo, more than Crocodile, more than Kaido, more than Big Mom, Blackbeard will leave a mark in One Piece unlike any other. We have not seen the Straw Hats dealt a heavy, emphatic defeat since the Sabaody archipelago. I have reason to believe that the next crushing blow they face will be at the hands of Blackbeard and his gang of miscreants. We have not seen what Blackbeard is fully capable of yet. He also had 2 years to better his craft, and let's not forget, this guy is just casually walking around with 2 devil fruits to his name. God only knows how far Teach has come since the last time we've seen him in action, and frankly, it's frightening to even think about. We have sat front row and center as Luffy has punched his way to being one of the 4 strongest pirates in the world. Blackbeard, on the other hand, remains an anomaly. I can see the Blackbeard pirates flexing their newfound strength against the Straw Hat pirates and winning via underhanded means, because that's how these cats get down. We all know this. This will make for one hell of a comeback story at Laugh Tale. The rematch of Destiny, but this time with everything on the line. The throne, the world's greatest treasure, in the title of Pirate King. Luffy versus Blackbeard is a tale, a rivalry, that personifies what this story represents at its heart. Freedom, dreams, and drive. Their fates are soon due to intertwine and cause a storm guaranteed to reverberate across the Grand Line for generations to come. After all, as has been said before, the D will always bring forth a storm. Luffy versus Blackbeard is a battle I cannot wait to see, and with how much build-up precedes it, there is no doubt in my mind that Oda is gonna blow our minds with this epic collision. If you enjoyed the video, hey, come on, you know the drill. Hit that like button, come on, you know you want to. Subscribe and help us both out, because you are sure to get your weekly doses of One Piece and anime greatness alike. I am the one, the only Jay Adonis, and I will catch you good folk on the flip side. Stay gold.